Great things never came from comfort zones. There is nothing permanent except change. We're constantly changing, and everything around us is changing, and there's no constant thing in life except for change. And now, especially with technology and the information at our fingertips, change has never been easier. So the only question remains is, how much do you want change? We cannot become what we want by remaining what we are. Willpower is nothing but willingness to do. In this video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of strengthening our willpower, our ability to do what we set out to do. And I'm going to use a concept that I've come across recently and I've been thinking quite a lot about, and I think is very helpful to help us move towards where we want to be, and more importantly to watch out and to be able to watch for the shortcomings and the things that take us away from that, the things that move us away from the goals that we set, and to be able to keep an eye on that. So this concept is on the fact that we have two selves within us. We have the future self, if you like, or the higher self, the part of us that makes the goal, that decides they want to lose weight, learn the language, get in shape, do this healthy habit. So that's the future self or the higher self. But then there's the current self, the self in this moment. You can call it the current self or the animal self, the stuff that wants it to be easy in the moment. You can almost think of it that the future self writes the checks and then the current self has to cash those checks. And there's times, like I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, that the current self sometimes doesn't want to cash the checks that the future self has written. And again, if this carries on month after month, and it can cause some serious issues. So the main or the one good, very clear example that I'll lay out for you, and then I'll share some others. But the most clearest example I can think of is there's some people who, when they wake up, the first thing they do upon awakening, I listened to a podcast from Tony Robbins, and again, this is how he starts his day. He wakes up, first thing he does, before anything else, is he jumps in an ice cold pool. I think they call it cold shock therapy, and supposedly it gets everything moving and energized, gets the blood flowing, and these cold shock proteins are very good for you. So how he describes he did it, or does it, he wakes up and he jumps in. His future self has set the date of the morning, the waking up, and the jumping in, the immersion in the cold pool. But his current self, the animal self, the self that has to cash the check, of course it doesn't want to do it. It's cold, you've just woken up. It's thinking, I don't want to jump in this cold pool. But for Tony Robbins, he's got it under such control, that animal and current self, that he doesn't listen to it. He doesn't listen to the nagging doubts and the laziness, the lethargy, the want to make everything easy. So he's got it on a short leash, and when those thoughts come in, he just ignores them. He wakes up, he jumps in the pool. And the alternative would be, if you had this current self, this animal self. I mean, I'm just calling it an animal self in the sense that it just wants the easy life, if you like, and you have to discipline it to the way you want it to behave. And so the alternative to Tony Robbins would be the alarm goes off. Yeah, you've written this check that you're going to get up and jump in this cold pool, and the current self, it says, oh no, just 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes in bed. That's the first thing that will happen. Just 5 more minutes in bed. And then if you decide to sit up and I better get moving, then it will say, let's just have a cup of coffee first, and then we'll immerse ourselves in the cold pool. And then next would be, oh, you know what, just another half an hour, and then you lie back down to half an hour. And this is the main point that I'm trying to get across. Your future self has written a check that I'm going to immerse myself in the cold pool, and the current self, the one that has to cash that check, it's taken over. It's decided, I don't want to cash that check right now. I want to just take it easy. I want to go back to bed. And like some of these quotes that I've shared, no greatness is going to come from your bed, unless you want to just be super relaxed and chilled, but that's not going to get you to your goals. And so that's the a very clear example of this future self and current self. But you can take it to any part of your life. Again, gym, getting the body in shape is a good one. Your future self writes the check after work. I'm going to come home, have a healthy meal, and I'm going to go hit the gym for an hour. Whereas when the time comes and you're at home and it's warm and you've unwound from the day, and the current self has to cash that check and head out to the gym, starts making all sorts of excuses. It starts saying, oh, but it's been a busy day at work. Oh, I'm feeling full from my dinner. Oh, I've got lots of stuff to do. And so it says, it just rips up the check and says, we won't go gym today, we'll go tomorrow. And if, like I say, if this happens over and over, then it can cause real problems. And another example on the health front is the healthy eating. So you've prepared your meal or whatever, or you've got your meal plan, and it's very healthy, very clean protein and clean carbs and some good veggies. But and that's the future self. It's written that check. That's what I'm going to have for dinner. But now the current self comes in, and the animal part, it wants the sugar, it wants the fat, it wants the stuff that's bad for that future self. But in the moment, it instantly gratifies that part of you. And so again, that's the battle, that's the war. Do I cash this check that my future self wrote, and it knows is best for me? It's the higher self. If you're making these plans about goals and dreams and aspirations, that's the part of our psyche that we should be listening to, and not the current animal self that wants to take it easy, that wants to chill out, that wants to eat the sugary stuff. Okay, so that's the main point that I wanted to get across, and to become very aware of this. Become very aware of any future checks that you write. You can even write it down. We'll go to the gym. We'll eat healthy. We'll do this. We'll do that. And then when the time comes, review it and look, oh, these are the checks that I wrote. And see the resistance. See the resistance in you that the animal, the current self has. And our job is to just not give that any weight, not listen to it. Just as soon as these little thoughts come up, try and push them aside as soon as you can, and focus on the future self and where you want to be, where you want to get to. And just one last example from my own life that is a regular occurrence, and I've got no shame admitting it to you, because this is how I can see these things so clearly. So I like to try and do my meditation each evening, and that's a check that the future self writes. It knows, my higher self knows, that meditating each evening is going to be very good for every part of me, every part of my world. But when the current self has to start cashing that check, when the animal part of me needs to cash a check, so that I've done my evening routine, I've put the children to bed, and now I'm free. You think my current self cashes that check every night? It doesn't. I want to, and it's almost like a voice from my higher self or my future self saying, "Come on, Lou, you know what you got to do. It's time to get in the good room and sit down and do your practice." And the current self is like, "Oh, but it's been a busy day. Oh, the kids were difficult this evening. Let me just have a half an hour on Netflix. Let me just watch a couple of episodes. Oh, it'll be all right. It'll be all right." And then as soon as you give you give control to that part of yourself, and you resist, and you be weak-willed, I suppose is the best way to put it, then all of a sudden you're indulging this current self, this weak self, or the weak will, I suppose you can say, and you're not doing what your future self needs, if you like. To get to these goals, you have to do what you put in place, the plans that you make. And so I just wanted to share this with you today because it's a big part of my experience of the world and my life, and I heard it on a few different podcasts, coming from a few different people speaking about this. And so it really crystallized it in my mind and made me able to talk about it in this way and share some examples. And so, to conclude, I suppose the main point would be that the future self, the self, that the space you're in when you set these goals, get in shape, eat better, go to the gym, learn a language, do some spiritual practices, that part of yourself is again the future self, the higher self, the part of you that knows that you want to get to this better place in your life. And then the current self, the animal part of you, the weak part, if you like, the part that likes to take it easy, the part that likes to slack off in the moment, that doesn't want to cash these checks. We have to watch that. We have to watch that, and we have to keep it on a very short leash, just like Tony Robbins, yeah? When Tony Robbins wakes up, he has these thoughts. Of course he does, because he's only human, but he's got it on a very short leash. He just gives it a yank and says, shush, I'm jumping in. Done. And then there's no issue. Whereas if it's a very long leash and it can, but, there's this but later, but tomorrow, but this, but that. It's the cause of a lot of people and even myself, but later, but tomorrow. And it stops us from becoming our future self or living our best life. I've heard a lot of people using this term now, live our best life. And we have to start cashing checks if we want to be that. We have to start cashing the checks that our future self writes for us, and we have to cash them whether we want to or not, whether it's difficult or not. And if we do that for a month, for 6 months, for a year, we're gonna become that future self. We're gonna become that best life, and we're gonna be experiencing that. So I hope this helped you, and share with us in the comments what it is that you want to achieve, or certain patterns that your current self often brings, to stop you from cashing these checks. And there's loads. And it might be helpful if you want to share your experiences, just for everyone else to see that we're all the same. We all struggle from these things. Even Tony Robbins, he has these weak moments, but he doesn't give them any leeway in his life. He doesn't let them take any sort of control. So if you enjoyed that, why not hit the subscribe button and join the channel. And my message, I feel it is growing and developing and becoming clearer for me. And who knows where it's going to go in another year, Hopefully I'll keep posting these videos and try and make everyone's lives as best as they can be. So thanks for watching. Start cashing some checks and not listening to that weak animal lazy self. All right, take care. Bye.